This over, and we are live. Good morning, everybody. Here we go.
Coming to you live is the Auto Hub Show, changing automotive one show at a time with Ian and Jeff. And here we go.
You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Hi, I'm Gail Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of a company called Retail Resilient, social selling for the car industry. And we help auto dealers, auto agencies, and vendors in the auto industry sell more cars, service more cars, and make more money using our social selling strategy. That includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and anything else you can think of. So if you're looking to invest thousands and make millions, we're definitely the social selling company for you. Like I said, who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks?
If you run a service drive, you know these days first impressions matter. But when your advisors are tied up with inbound phone calls, they tend to neglect their other, more important duties. And did you know 75% of all service calls are frequently asked questions and routine requests? Still, the average dealer misses up to 30% of inbound calls, adding up to a ton of missed service opportunity and increased customer churn. 68% of callers actually go elsewhere if they can't get through, which means you could be losing $60,000 to $70,000 every month in service revenue simply from missing calls. So who will pick up? Introducing Brooke.
Hi there.
Your best service scheduling assistant. Brooke is the first intelligent digital voice assistant to answer, handle, and appoint all of your inbound service calls. And talking to Brooke is like talking to a friend with human-level understanding and a friendly conversational voice. Her conversational intelligence is built on millions of actual service industry conversations. Book with Brooke today. Visit Brooke.ai or call 866-942-1236. Finally, the perfect match.
Our goals are always to improve. Every month we want to improve better on what we did the month before, maybe the year before. It's about how fast we can get the cars done with quality work to get it to the front line, because that's where we make our money. And the bottom line is the longer it takes, the more money we spend. We want to get it down as low as possible. Right now, like I said, we're in a great stage. We're at 4.5 days. In recon, we want to know how quickly we can get the cars out of the recon process and to the front line. The average days in recon and then the time to line are the most important things that we look for. I'm Mike Burrell, and Service Director at JM Lexus.
Larry Feldman is probably the most amazing trainer that I've ever experienced in this business. I've been in the car business now for 35 years, and I've seen quite a few trainers. A lot of them are pretty good. I mean, really, I get something out of all of them that I've seen, really. But Larry is in another class. I really mean that. His training is literally riveting. A little while back, I sat in on his first training that I ever sat in on. It was for new hires. I still remember. I'll never forget it. About 25 people in the room who'd never sold cars before. And after 2 hours, I raised my hand. Larry stopped what he's doing and said, yes. And I said, maybe we should take a break. And literally, I'll never forget it. All 25 people turned around, looked at me, and went, well, okay. And he kept going for another 2 hours. Since then, I've seen a few other of his trainings. I've hired people out of his classes. All I can say is, you got to give him a try.
Good morning and welcome. So, we actually had the experience of Larry live in Vancouver last week. So we were here for a couple sessions. So it was a really great event. And thanks, Larry, for coming and visiting with us in Vancouver. We have snow again this week, which is interesting. A couple books. It was kind of hard to find car books for the Christmas holiday, or for the seasonal holiday. The Holiday Trap, Once Upon a Car, and A Man and His Car was the ones I came up with. But go ahead, Jeff.
Hello, hello, hello. Disclaimer time. Well, seeing as how we have Larry on today, welcome, guys. We definitely have to talk about the disclaimer here. We are entirely low-key show. We are very apolitical. We have no opinions whatsoever, and therefore take absolutely no responsibility for our guests. We will not talk about anybody's kids or anybody's statements that come out of their mouth at times of excitement. Other than that, check out our disclaimer page. Good morning.
Excuse me, I think I'm on the wrong show.
I think so. What's that guy's name that we won't get into that.
So holiday show, seasonal show, Christmas show, Hanukkah show, Kwanzaa, Festivus, whatever you want to call it. It's the last show of the year, so welcome. I know we had some people drop out because of sickness, so we're sorry about that. I'm recovering myself, but I'm well enough to do the show, so here we go. So go ahead, Jeff.
Well, good morning, guys. I have to tell you, we had a very exciting week or so. We got the good chance to visit with Larry when he was here in Vancouver, and he gave shared his unique opinions and views and everything with salespeople, managers, dealers from all over the greater Vancouver area, and fun was had by all. The best part was the Love Fest afterwards. We connected with some people we know here. Sean Armour flew in all the way from Montreal. And for those of you Americans that don't understand, flying from Montreal to Vancouver, there is nowhere except for Hawaii in the United States or Alaska where you can fly that long to get somewhere. So it was just a thrill to have Sean here. We had the ladies from AFI, one of our sponsors, automotive finance and insurance experts, and it was wonderful. And then later in the week, Ian and I, after I dropped off Larry at 4:00 in the morning at the airport, thanks, Larry. No, just kidding. Ian and I got the chance to take the Auto Hub show to a different level. We did a review and a drive of the Lucid Air GT electric car. And let me tell you something, it was awesome. This car is I've said it, an out Bentley's a Bentley, an out Ferrari's a Ferrari, and I've got to tell you, I think it out Rolls Royce is a Rolls Royce, and out Bugatti's a Bugatti. And that is my dog in the background, seeing as how I decided to do it without any background today. But this car, if you get a chance, their corporate philosophy is come in and drive the car. You don't have to come in and say, I want to buy a car. Come in, look at the car, take it for a drive. I will tell you, even in Texas, you will turn heads with that car, Tim. And wow, it is, they electronically limited the car here to 85 miles an hour. And we got there from 20 miles an hour to 85 quicker than you could say SHIT.
Yeah, I think he said it's about 850 horsepower, the one we drove. It was there is a video of it. I don't have all of it, but I will have not only a precursor at their studio talking about the car. Ironically, the guy who runs it is an ex-Apple store manager, which is kind of interesting. He had a lot of questions about what car people think of the standalone, direct-to-consumer model, which was kind of interesting. But it was really interesting that they now went with a one-tone interior option, which last time I drove the car, they didn't have that option. So that was kind of interesting. But also, as there's been more, he even had some opinions on VinFast, which was kind of interesting. He's not a fan of that, which was kind of interesting. But it was what was the most interesting was his questions about the industry in general. It's interesting as you see people enter the industry, but more importantly, manage locations for manufacturers in this case, how they're curious about the industry, but more importantly, they're not sure what other people in the industry think. So I think it would be interesting to have a show maybe in 2023, Jeff, we can put on the roster where we talk about direct to consumer, if we can get one of them to be on the show versus a dealer or versus an OEM to really talk about, okay, there's room in the pool for all these different options because customers are going to have options. But more importantly, it's interesting that they're not concerned, but more curious about what people think. I mean, kind of what we've been experiencing lately with Mr. Musk and Twitter. I'm starting to understand that maybe he should care about the people on the platform a little more than he thinks he should. So it's been kind of interesting. But Jeff, why don't you start with some questions, or maybe someone has some thoughts on learnings from 2022 or thankfulness for 2022, or maybe some seasonal stuff that people want to share? But go ahead, Jeff.
How about I put this out? What the heck happened last year? Tim?
You had parallel trend lines, right? If you want to break them down, we had the pandemic in the rear view, finally, right? I mean, a lot of people still say it's out there, but so is the flu, so is RSV. We've got a bit of a cocktail of viruses that are out there right now. That's reality now. But in terms of a limiting factor, in terms of our lives and how we go out and about and we spend, not even the stock market could dictate what we spend. Not even inflation could dictate what we spend. So we're learning a whole lot of things about humanity when it comes to the things we can't control. And then you look at the other trend line, which is, I would argue, something you can't control, is just listening to you guys give all kinds of love to Lucid, right? Just as I hear you doing that, that's what's happening right now, is people understand that there are vehicles coming to market that have 1/200th the number of moving parts, 1/200th the propensity for stuff to go wrong with it. And forget horsepower. It has nothing to do with horsepower anymore. It has to do with torque. It has to do with the ability that these are vehicles that can outpull an F350 dually and can go 0 to 85, as you said, in a matter of 3 or 4 seconds. And it's quiet as a church mouse the whole time. This is all happening at once. It's all moving from left to right. 2022 was the year that I think if you thought you had it all figured out, 2023 is going to look a lot different. So this was just our primer. The change, the volatility of this year is only going to be worse and more substantial, I believe, going forward.
I think that's such a very good point. And one thing that was very interesting, I don't know how you felt, and Larry, maybe you can touch on this, but when I said to you, go drop in, just go look at the car, the first thing in your mind is, maybe I'm wrong, but it's like, oh, man, yeah, but they aren't going to want to do that. And again, can you imagine a Ford dealer when somebody to say to somebody, come and drive a Lightning. It's okay, come and drive it. I'm not going to ask you to buy it. Come on in. I just want you to go out and drive it. And a couple people, I said it to my doctor, who's a car nut, telling me about his BMW, the iX SUV, and oh my God, and it's so fast. And he goes, no, I just bought a truck. I says, just go buy. They don't want to sell you a car. Well, they probably don't have any for him at the moment because there's a big lineup. Such a different approach. Larry, what do you think?
Well, it's the classic drug dealer mantra. The first taste is free. Once we get you hooked, we got you. There's every good trainer, myself included. Tim Hayden, anybody that's worth their salt is willing to say, you know what? Let me just come in and show you what I have. I won't charge you. Because if there's quality there and value there, they're going to want it. You don't have to chase people down the street if the value's there. I also agree with everything Tim had to say. It's going to be a really exciting, interesting time because it's not like it's one area of upheaval. Everything is changing at the same time. From a business model, our buddy's having trouble getting on today, Don Graff, who's a BDC expert. And we're going to do him and I are going to do some things in 2023. But I'm licking my chops because, to quote John Kostakis, good times make for bad habits. And so many people have got used to pointing at a car and saying, it's only this much over list. Do you want it? Because if not, the lady behind you will gladly take it.
Right.
So we're going to have an industry that you're going to have to remotivate people because they got used to making crazy money, which is fine. I'm a capitalist. You're going to have to reconnect people, and everybody that's ever been on the show with me for a minute knows I'm a freak for old school communication, answering your phone, saying hello to people, looking people in the eye. It's just all going to be such a tremendous opportunity. My last quote of this segment, Ben Franklin, man, the only thing constant is change, right? When you're finished changing, you're finished. So we're going to have to adapt to a whole bunch of things, and at the same time, not forget that it's more important than ever to make a human connection, to look people in the eye, and just to be human. But I think anybody is excited because of how many interesting things are going to happen, and how I don't think anybody's smart enough to predict exactly how 2023 is going to be. So like everybody else, I'm just excited to see what happens. And by the way, you mentioned Sean Armour flying God knows how many miles. You forgot to mention his son Mason, who stole the show from him anyway.
Boom. Amazing kid, man. He stood up in front of this room with about 100 strangers, with Larry sitting there and saying, "So Mason, da 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 da," and he just responded great. One thing I wanted to mention about capitalism. One thing we've forgotten about capitalism. Capitalism is the result of hard work. And our one drawback to what we've had this last year is a lot of people made money by not working. And now they're going to get a little bit of a wake-up call to say, you mean I have to put down my phone and my coffee to sell a car?
Wait a minute, Jeff.
Huh?
You're drifting into politics, and you know how adamant I am about not discussing the political nightmare of paying people not to work. The only reason my president, and I use that term sadly, Joe Biden, isn't offended is he's probably taking a nap right now.
Well, listen, when the first Democrats came over on the Schmayflower with the liberals, and they sat together and they said, "No, Captain, you don't have to steer the boat. We'll get through it." No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. All I'm doing is joking. Ian, change subjects.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was watching some stuff today. First of all, on a Rolex dealer out of, I think he was out of England somewhere. He owns a number of different locations. And he was talking about how you don't need to worry because, there's more demand than supply for these watches. We're limited by the manufacturer for what we can charge, but that doesn't mean the aftermarket sale isn't crazy. But we're not real worried about 2023 because there's so much demand for our products. And I remember the person interviewing him was like, "Well, but aren't you a little concerned that people even at the top might not have money next year?" I go, "Nah, I'm not really that worried." And it was kind of echoing of what I'd consider a car dealer, not to beat them up, but the car dealer mindset. Well, everything was good in 2022, and they're not ready for that change in 2023. And I think that the one thing that's constant and has been now for the last several years is change is interesting, but more importantly, not really predictable. So I think the one of the many things that car dealers need to be looking at, and so do the manufacturers, is how is that consumer sentiment going to change? Where is it going to change? And how do I prepare for it? So I know we talked about this many times on the show, but when you look at the training session that Larry had in Vancouver last week, and you look at the people in the event, in addition to trainers and other people, the constant was there was a lot of people that seemed to be pretty comfortable with where they were, or how things have been going. And I think what's going to change in 2023 is you're going to have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. The problems that you dealt with last year are probably last year's problems. This year, we're going to have a new set of problems, and they're not going to be what you'd expect. So you really need to be thinking about, okay, how am I going to manage my business in that 90-day window? How am I going to manage inventory when I have more of it and it costs me more? How am I going to deal with my staff when maybe they're used to making double what they should have made, and they have to Jeff's point, have to work harder to make that money. In addition to that, politics is a whole other side. How is the government going to change the channel to try and protect people?
I'm going to mute Larry. No, just kidding. One thing I just wanted to touch on base on that is one thing about those of us who've been in the business a long time, we have learned to pivot.
Yeah.
We have learned to literally be like that running back that suddenly, as he's running down, sees 300-pound linemen right in front of him, stops in his tracks, twirls, and goes the other way. What worries me is that these dealers in the last 2 years that have expanded, like some of these places have grown 3 and 4 and 5 times the size. The new management people have come in during a time when basically it was like Walmart on Black Friday. All they had to do was open their doors, and they don't know how to pivot. And maybe, I'm thinking of one group, which I won't mention, started by the dad, we'll call it. And the dad's now in his 60s, and it's kind of like saying, something, I want to get a bigger boat and go on it. And the next generation's there, but they've only been involved for 3 years. And wowie, look at this, we're great. And then all of a sudden, people aren't coming in because, hey, there's recession, there's this, there's that, they're buried in their trades, and they don't know how to pivot. And I mean, that's my big fear, is we're a pivoting business, but we got a group of people that literally don't know.
Jeff, that won't be a problem for successful dealers. And the reason is,
Larry J. Feldman. Yeah, go ahead.
And the reason is, if you've ever run a dealership, and thank God I've had that experience and I did it successfully, I never looked at what we were doing. I looked at what I missed, because it's very easy to get swayed by statistics. And right, what's the old expression? There's lies, damn lies, and then there's statistics. It's always, what did I miss? What could I do a little bit better and a little bit differently? So while these are extraordinary times coming off the pandemic and the rush to electric vehicles, it still comes down to who can be better, and what can you do a little differently, and what are you pushing? One other note, Ian was talking about Rolex. Jeff, your wife was kind enough to show me around because you got lured to the lot. And Ian, you did get me that great deal on that Rolex, but when I looked at it out of the box, it has 2 L's. Is that unusual in Canada?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because the thing that was interesting about this watch dealer is I kind of aligned this guy to that high-end car dealer, or even that mainline car dealer who sells high-end cars, who says, yeah, it's all good. People are paying too much. I don't have any anyway. It's all good, right? And it was kind of funny to see that alignment, but more importantly, you got to get your head out of that bottle of water, wherever you've been submerging your head. You got to start looking at service. You got to start looking at customer experience. You got to start looking at competition. You got to start looking at training your team to deal with these new problems that maybe none of them have ever dealt with. And I think that was the interesting thing when we met with Lucid, was he was saying, well, I thought car dealers were in shopping malls. And the reality is some of them are, but at the end of the day, it's about the customer. And I think a lot of it is about, okay, we understand that you're concerned about the change around. Let's go through that explanation. That's one of the many things I thought Larry really, taught in the training last week, which was like, hey, you need to talk to the customer and listen to the customer's concerns. It's no longer, let's pull them down this rabbit hole and walk them through these steps, and maybe that turns into a car deal. It's, what is your concern, Mr. Customer or Mrs. Customer? And we all know Mrs. Customer is probably more important, but at the end of the day, it's, you got to start listening to what that customer's saying, because they're just as shell-shocked as everybody else. They're trying to figure it out, but more importantly, they don't want to be led down that garden path per se. They want to know sort of, how are you there to help them? What's going to happen when things change for them? And as we see things continue to change, yeah, I think the buying process will evolve, but so will the service process and the parts process. I think the constant is change, and the industry is overdue. I mean, I think we're going to see disruption, not only in the car industry, but in banking and elsewhere.
Here's the funny part, Ian.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, but we were watching Larry. You're there the whole time. And the average age of the guys in the room, Larry, what do you think, was 30 of the people in the room?
Yep.
And they were looking at you. I don't want to swell your ego, but they were looking like, oh my God, it's a coming to you know who meeting. And there's Larry talking about some new some new stuff that says, hey, just ask them questions. Hey, just get to know them. Hey, why don't you sell them a car the way they want to buy the car and find out what it is about them? And they're sitting there going, yeah, oh, wow. Except for the one old dog in the back that's sitting like this going, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, okay. And it was like they'd never heard of such amazing things, because everything they're being taught right now is get them or don't. Look at you. You know, the only good thing was the one dealer, and I'll shut up for there. The one dealer that their guys normally were wearing jeans and boots and whatever, because things were so successful. There's a whole new crowd of young kids wearing skinny suits.
And Jeff, if I agree with you completely, and it's so funny. Tim, you know, because I remember commenting on your guitar. I'm a musician. Matter of fact, I sent these guys a clip of us doing Run Run Rudolph. We played our holiday show on Saturday.
Awesome.
I explained to people to come to see my band. I love my band. We rock. We're not the Beatles. We're the Rolling Stones. We keep playing that Chuck Berry 1-4-5 variation. I told a lot of jokes on, I think if you don't keep them entertained, you lose them. And then you can sneak your message in. But I told a guy a great joke once, and he said, it's an old joke. I said, they're all old jokes. They were telling these jokes in ancient Rome. It's about your mother-in-law. It's about sex. It doesn't change. So the funny thing is, with all the emphasis on tech and EV and all the rest of it, it doesn't mean a damn thing if they don't like it.
Right.
Period. But once you get to that, you damn well better understand what an EV does and the technology and the programming. But if they don't like you, you're not getting to. That's why the meet and greet's the most important step, because you don't. If you blow that up, you're not getting to a walk around or a demo or prospecting or getting the chance to follow up.
Peter, you've been pretty quiet. Any thoughts?
Well, I have to concur with Larry there. I was at a bigger dealer group in Toronto here last week, and I asked them what's their number one pain point right now. And if I was able to train anybody in their dealership, what would be their number one ask? And that was back to basics. They said, nobody knows how to approach a customer anymore. It's the pivoting went too far to one side, and they've lost the ability of that knowledge. I relate it back to, I took 12 years of French in school. Ask me to speak French. I haven't done it. I haven't spoken French in 30 years. I could probably tell you where the bathroom is. So that's about it. In Petit Peu, yes. It's ridiculous. If we don't practice it, we'll never get it. And right now, with the disruptions of the automobile industry that's happening, and there's lots of them happening, and you see it. And 3 years ago, everyone was saying, "Oh my God, Carvana, Carzoo, car this, car that." They were going to destroy the business. Well, what happened? They all imploded.
Wasn't Carzoo an alien in a cartoon?
Gazoo. But
not
Gazoo is in Britain, and they were the largest internet retailer in the UK, and their stock is now down at 13 cents. Yeah, it's like they've imploded, and the reason why they imploded because they scaled way too fast. They scaled way too fast. They didn't have the appropriate people in play. They didn't have the knowledge. They didn't have the experience. They had all these, and I hate saying this, all these millennials that they said, here's our market. We're going to fill our market, our building with our market, and that's what's going to happen.
Peter, can I scare you? I was on a Clubhouse show, and they wanted to know the 5 or 6 things that we need to move into this millennium, move into the next decade. Yeah. And I heard all this techno mumbo jumbo. Okay. And that's all it is to me. No disrespect. I'm probably the most ignorant guy on the program and willfully proud of it. And then, of course, I did what I always did. I was a smart aleck and explained, you got to get back to basics. Well, one of the guys was really cool, like the fine folks we have on the show. And he said, Larry, you're 100% right and you're 100% wrong. Well, some of that math seemed a little incongruent to me. So what do you mean? He says, I agree with you, but have you talked to any young people? I said, well, I don't live in a cave. He says, Larry, you don't understand. I'm with you, but my daughter, I won't use any names, my daughter has an iPhone and has, Peter, I'm not making this up. She has never made a phone call on her iPhone. All she uses it is to text. And he said, if you think that's frightening, wait, it gets uglier. He says, he didn't say whether it was his mother or his wife's mother, but he said her grandmother sent her a check and she tried to take a picture and deposit it, but it was a little bit over the level. I think it's $5,000.
Yeah.
So he said, well, no problem. Go get a deposit slip and go to the bank. She says, I don't know how to do that. I'm going to call grandma and have her send me 2 checks in smaller denominations. This is the level of insanity. By the way, if you are trying to show your sophistication, because they bring me on the show because I'm so well-rounded with French, try a line like, hey, Pierre, I think I left my French fries in the Renault. That'll immediately impress them. If they're mentally unstable like I am.
You know, here's a point that's being made. So we go down to, you know, I know, Tim, you got something going on in NADA this year. You go down to NADA and the exhibitor booths, and frankly, the sessions are really good, but you're sitting there with a whole bunch of strangers and somebody's talking to you or somebody's video, you can't hear it. So you go to the vendor thing and there's going to be, I don't know, Ian, what do you think? 1,000 vendors there?
Maybe more.
whatever.
There's a lot last time. So yeah, I would say that, but at least that many.
650 vendors, of which
Plenty.
649 are going to be tech and digital.
Right.
And it still comes down to this, like Larry said in the thing, and I don't want to build up that big ego, as I said. Love the guy to bits, but I don't care how much you got if you don't do nothing with it. So
Right.
it's this guy's daughter. Yeah, well, I can deposit a check, but it's outside the box, so I'm going to go get somebody else to do it for me. And this is the thing about this going back to basics. It isn't the new manufacturers, quick changing gears on the same topic. Would anybody invest in a new manufacturer that's coming out with a 12-cylinder engine car? No. Nobody's interested. So the new manufacturers may be selling electric vehicles, but they're selling a little bit different way of doing business. And this is the thing. And we all think they're environmentally friendly, except when we talk to the Lucid guys, because I got to pump this up, by the way. But we talk to the Lucid guys, you open the door, the first thing you feel when you open the door of a Lucid is this amazing aroma of leather. And it's amazing. But it's sustainable leather, which I'm still not really sure what that means. But you know, so somebody says, well, that's wrong. Look at Tesla, look at VinFast, look at Polestar. They all have vegan leather. Translation? Vinyl.
Yeah.
Right.
Vinyl is plastic.
Leather.
Plastic. It's everybody's banning plastic. So it isn't all that. It's called, how are they treating people? How are they the people that buy from them want their business done the way those people do business. It isn't the way. People are going buying a Dodge Ram Classic at the dealer and going back and forth and paying $5,000 over list to get $6,000 back in the trade because that's how they want to do it. That's a big deal. It's how they want to do it.
At the end of the day, you still need to experience that vehicle, whether that's them delivering it to your house, or you going to a store and driving it, or you building it online and then eventually driving it. You still need to experience that. And I think that's where the rubber hits the road, for lack of a better term, is that you're not going to replace that retail thing. I mean, one of the things he said, which was really interesting, was their biggest challenge, which is the same challenge that Tesla has, and I'm sure VinFast and others will have the same problem, is, yeah, they may have some locations to sell these vehicles, but service and customer retention and everything else is a big problem for them. And I think it's a big opportunity as well. When you look at the legacy manufacturers out there, pick the one, I mean, they already have that footprint. Now, there may be a smaller footprint by 2025 or 2030, just because there won't be as many dealers out there, in my opinion. But those dealers that are out there are going to get real good at doing everything, or they're going to get a lot better because they're going to have to. You're going to have to be better at service. You're going to have to be better at customer experience. You're going to have to be better at retention. You're going to have to be better at profitability because there's going to be more profit centers with less profit in each one. You're going to have to be diversify your business. And I think that's not just automotive retailers. When you look at big box retailers, to pick another retail, there's the ones who do it well, will survive. And there's the ones who don't, who aren't going to survive. And I think that's been true over the last 20 years. You're seeing fewer and fewer big box retailers make it. And the reason is you can no longer justify that 300,000 square foot store with stuff in it. It's not about the stuff. It's about what are people's experiences like when they go into those locations. And we've seen that from online retailers who start online and then go to retail. But we've also seen that from big box retailers who scale down their retail footprint and gone online. So I think that the reality is change is true everywhere. But at the end of the day, if the customer doesn't want what you're selling, you're not going to be in business very long.
Yeah, I won't go to Costco online because you can't get free samples when you're there.
Ian, can we dig into the psychology of you said something twice, but you didn't dig in deep enough.
Okay.
Experience. The experience of buying a car. Now, let's split the atom. The beauty of Amazon is if you need something and you need it quick, you order it and it's there. End of story. Couldn't be any easier. But with a car, considering, second largest purchase we'll probably ever make, it's got to be an experience. It's got to be fun. Every time I see Peter, every time I see Tim, every time I see my boy Don, you're all really successful. Well, yeah, what you do is great, and the product you have is great, but it's the experience. Tim, you know for a fact that I'm mentally unstable. I'm selling the experience. People that meet me, they don't come out and go, "Oh, that was an interesting thing." They're out of their minds because I make them out of their mind. If I stood up there and I was boring, it'd be over. This is not bragging because I believe everybody has this capacity. They're just afraid to use it. I've been known, if John Kostakis, my promoter, didn't stop me, and Ian and Jeff will back me up, I would have went 3.5 hours because I do it all over the country. Don's seen me do it in the States.
This is what you saw John doing.
Oh, you mean he wasn't indicating I wasn't close-shaven enough?
Yeah,
Peter, the rumor is the big check that John Kostakis gave me was not to come to the country, but was to leave.
He was like another John Williams. He's in the background doing.
Yeah, and Jeff did drive me to the airport at 4, but he didn't indicate his wife was up at 2 o'clock packing my bag to make sure I didn't miss the plane. It's got to be an experience. It's got to be fun. It's got to be something different because we've minimized experience as a people because of how casual we are. I don't want to sound like I'm 100 years old, but I'm a historian, so I'm aware of things before I was born. If people went to a baseball game and went on a flight, they put a suit and tie on. It meant something. And I'll tell you what, I have the craziest collection of ties, Peter, you've ever seen in your life. Man, if you want music ties or Daffy Duck or Tasmanian, I'm your guy. But if I never had to wear another tie, it'd be fine. But I feel different when I put a suit and tie on than when I put a t-shirt on. It's an experience. It's how you perceive yourself, how they perceive yourself. And that's one of the things that slipped down the drain because you're pointing at a car and it's transactional rather than relationship. Man, if you can combine the transactional by trying to sell everybody on all circumstances and make it that much fun, you can't lose. But the experience, Ian, I think is what's slipping away because we're falling behind the mask of the tech stuff. Tim, again, and I'll shut up. I could write a whole psychology on how we're dooming ourselves as human beings.
Totally.
One of the things that I'm known for, and I'm other than being, like I said, nuts, is I always answer my phone. And I hired a young lady who I sold a car to and has been a friend forever to answer the phone if I don't. I dial my 866 number into my cell and into hers. But I cannot tell you, and this is very sad, how many times I answer the phone as she does and there's a big pause because the people making the call do not expect you to answer the phone. How worked is that? Let me go to the doctor. I know he won't heal me. So when you're in a situation where people don't know how to communicate, don't expect to communicate, where the hell are you going? Forget about selling cars. Listen, everybody on this program, I'm the dumbest guy on this program. Everybody's smart. We're all going to prosper. Okay. But how about what's going to happen to the world when we no longer, because everything that goes wrong in the world basically comes down to miscommunication, right? I mean, if people weren't so afraid of Putin, okay, somebody would have sat in the room with him and said, hey, boss, it's been more than the 2 days you told us. It's dragging on to 6 months. And some Russian mothers are a little unhappy that they're, Vladimir's never coming home. See that, Peter? I use Vladimir and Pierre, my French fries in the Renault. It's like I'm an international.
I want to touch on something.
He's trying to break out.
Shut up. Yeah. No, I want to do something a little different here, if you don't mind, guys. One good thing about tech, and a quick story. We went down to dealer to driving sales. And my wife and I are walking through the hotel. We walk down this straight, big, long section of the hotel. We turn left, we turn right, we turn left, and we're walking. Every door looks the same to get to the convention area that this is in. I turn a corner, and way down at the end of this long hall, I see a good friend of mine that I have never, ever seen before. And it was like I'd seen him in person numerous times, and that's Don Graff. I went down there, I went, Mr. Graff, and literally he was smaller than he is on this screen. And the beauty of this tech is we have met people that have become friends. We talked about the other night when Larry was here, that never met in person. And I got to tell you, all of you guys, I firmly believe that if I was down in Austin and I'm in a mall and I see this guy at the end of the hall and I know, oh my God, it's Tim. Same thing in Niagara, obviously, in Bonita Springs, and guys, I got to tell you, the connections we've made through this medium is impossible to have made. I'm getting goosebumps because it's really, really special.
Well,
and I wanted to thank you all.
And thanks everyone as well. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, Jeff, was right across from this new Lucid store is a new Apple store that they just built at ridiculous expense. I mean, it's ridiculous. And why did they build that? They had a perfectly good store, I don't know, a couple months ago. They built it because it's an experience for people to come in and visit the store. And it was kind of funny because you look at what the manufacturers force the dealers to create. They don't create it for that experience. They create it because the tile is going to do something, but they don't teach the dealer how to have a better experience in the store. Like you look at the store and it's a focal point. It's at a big mall, whatever, but they really focused on the design of it for an experience for the customer. And people show up in droves to check it out. Now, the interesting thing will be, and to Larry's point, is that something that we can then bridge cross-generational for that 20-something today or that 30-something today versus that 50-something. And the aircraft example is a great example of that. Years ago when people flew on airplanes, it was an experience. Today, it's a cattle call. I think what we need to change at dealerships moving forward is it's not about how big the dealership is. It's about what experience are you creating when that person takes the time to visit. And that was something that I think I've always learned from Apple, at least for the last 10 years. But what I saw when I saw this location, which has been in construction for months, was people came to see the store. And it wasn't even about selling stuff on the second floor or maybe even the first floor, but it was about, we want to welcome you to this experience, which is our products. And I think that's something that we need to learn as car dealers. We want to thank you for taking the time to come in and at least check out the products. Not buy a product, even though we'd be happy to help you with that. But we need to thank you for taking the time to come in to take a look, because we know how much you love car dealers. So I think a lot of that is really just being thankful that the customer took the time, right?
So you're telling me that Chevy dealers are now going to rename their truck guy Truck Geniuses?
Well, I know BMW tried this. They had the BMW Genius, and they have tried this. And the luxury line of car dealers, I think, are starting to get somewhat of a handle of this. Like they're definitely playing around with it. where they're actually saying, hey, maybe the customer wants someone who knows something about the car that they're buying. So part of it, I think, is on us as car people, not knowing as much as that car consumer, but more importantly, maybe looking down our nose at them and saying, hey, like, I'm the car person. You're just visiting, right? So I think some of it has to be, hey, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. You had a lot of things to do this holiday season or this week or this weekend. You taking the time to come in and spend some time with me. I genuinely want to thank you for doing that. And how can I help you versus how can I oversell you something? So I think that whole mindset of back to basics is great, but maybe they're new basics. Maybe they're basics of being thankful for that person taking the time. I mean, that's
robots do not have attitudes of gratitude.
Right.
Again, it's back to the human beings.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I think that we could possibly do that, After all, hello, welcome to XYZ Motors. Are you here for a car, a truck, or whatever?
See, Tim, he spends a couple days with me now. He's mentally unstable too.
Well, I don't know if any of you guys have played with Chat GPT over the last 2 weeks, right? There's about 1.4 million people around the world that are starting to use it, and it's really simple. It's just artificial intelligence. You tell it to write a proposal for you, or to write a email for you, or 10 steps to building a customer relationship management plan. It does it for you. There's a lot of things that are happening there in the world of robots. We make fun, we look at automation, but that's what's happening to dealers, right? And I think let's talk about it for 1 second. There's a reason the Federal Trade Commission in the United States of America didn't go about legislature, but made it a rule that dealers have to abide by in terms of how they manage their data. And it's because of everything Larry's been talking about. Dealers in one industry more than any other industry there is have outsourced the entire customer experience. They go to BDCs, they go to Facebook, they go to Google, they go to people who give them robots that answer the phones. They go to anybody on top of the BDCs, right? They are so over merchandised in terms of how they've digitized the business, and they have totally looked the other way when it comes to understanding what it takes to build a customer relationship and what it takes to foster that into something that sells 1.4 vehicles per person that comes to the dealer or who we take a car to. That's the difference, right? So I think at the end of the day, what we're going to see in 2023 to bring it back around is how you guys started off with Lucid, and now 3 different times you've talked about how Lucid will just call you up and say, hey, do you want to drive it, or can we bring it to you and have you check it out? Not at all trying to sell it to you, right? So that's the way the best dealers in the country, the highest volume dealers in the country have always operated, and they still operate today, right? It's not about transactions, it's about relationships. And that's something we'll see change in 2023. The ones that don't do it are the ones that I think when you talk about the ones that are not here in 2 years, they're going to be the ones that don't do it. The ones that do it, the ones that really focus on that relationship, they're the ones that may live another year. The ones that take care of their data. And I'm not talking about more dashboards, Larry. I'm not talking about more automation. I'm just saying, respect what you have from the customers who already bought you, which is rich insights, data that probably can help you better serve them. But that's where it has to be the human who does it, not an email, not a display ad in Facebook or a video on TikTok. And I think
robots are programmed to do the input you give them to do.
Only what you taught them to do.
We should be programmed to find out the input from the customer.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, if the customer wants an email, if they want a text message, if they don't know how to use a phone, I mean, maybe there's an opportunity to teach them how to use a phone, but whatever. At the end of the day, it's how that person wants to be communicated to. So,
that's right.
that's I think the big learning from all of this It's not that a phone is bad or an email is bad or a text message is bad, but I think that the challenge from the people that sell to the industry, being the partners or the vendors, is it's like, oh, it was email, now it should be text, or it was a chat bot, now it should be this, or it was this, now it should be that. It's not about that. It's about, how do my customers want to be communicated? If I'm in a little town, chances are they probably still want a phone call. They may not want text messages.
Matter.
Right?
It doesn't matter. You
Once
gotta
again,
answer it.
Can we dig in a tiny bit deeper? Just
Of
a
course.
tiny bit. My point is, because of hey, listen, I'm running my whole business off my phone. I understand the necessity and importance of tech and staying up with it. I get it. But one of the dangers of relying on it too much, not using it properly, is we forgot how to listen.
Right.
Tim, I do it in every conference with every state, and I always get the stupid answers. I love to ask, what do you say to the guy that says, I only have 10, don't start your sales pitch, I only have 10 minutes, I gotta go watch my son or daughter play ball. And the answer is usually, I could do it in 10 minutes. I love to say, only if you're a hooker at a casino. You're not consummating a car deal in 10 minutes, okay? That was, by the way, that was Ian's favorite part. We'll talk about that later. The point is, the right answer is, what does your son play? Hockey. We're in Canada. You might have the next Wayne Gretzky. Tennis. Peter, your daughter might be the next Serena Williams. And if they really do have to leave, if it's not a ruse to get out, don't text them in 2 hours and say, I still have the vehicle. Say, how'd the next Serena Williams do? We don't know how to listen. We've gotten so bad at it. Because if you watch anything, any talk show, listen to any sports show, people holler at each other. They don't listen. They don't go. The problem with liberals and conservatives is there's no conversation. One accuses something of the other rather than responding to whatever the complaint or problem might be. So I love tech. I embrace it. I get it. I just don't want to become robots ourselves where we don't know how to listen or respond properly. That was my only point, Ian.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, you shouldn't just listen to respond. You shouldn't just ignore and continue. You should actually ask that person and listen to what they say, because, you know, and this comes back to even an internet lead. When they say, oh, do you want a phone call or do you want an email? Does anyone listen to that? Like,
Right.
nobody. Like they
No.
they constantly, and even, let's just say a text isn't even on there in some cases. The first thing they do is a text, multiple text messages. That isn't even on the list in some cases. So it's a question of, you know, there's different response types, and it's not saying technology is bad. It's, how do we create a better experience for every customer, not just the occasional customer? And that's really what I think some technology companies do really well, and some don't do as well. I mean, if that person wants to phone you, that's fine. If they want to email you, that's fine. If they want to text you, that's fine. And some things are great using that technology. Some things not so much.
Ian, one thing on that is, I'll go back to what my wife taught me about 8 years ago. Unconscious
Peter.
incompetence. Unconscious incompetence. They don't know that they don't know.
Right.
And we experience it all the time. We'll get it from salespeople. We'll get it from managers. We'll get it from stakeholders. We'll get it from customers. We'll get it from all kinds of different places, because people are not using what's in between the two ears, and that's their brains. They're using their brains, and they're not using common sense. And the problem with common sense is not too common. Mark Twain, great comment. Now the issue is, how do you redirect people to re-educate themselves and relearn the basics so that we actually follow through on the customers? And that's who we're here to serve. We're here to serve the customers. We're not here to serve the manufacturers. We're not here to serve the stakeholders or that. It's the customers. And I read a book just recently, and it was one of the greatest lines out of it is, a customer becomes a customer when they've been heard. When they've been heard, they become a customer, because at that point you are actually actively listening to what their needs are, their requirements, and you're there to solve that solution. Provide the solution for them so that they can now go from a customer to a client. And once you have the client becomes retention and so on, and the ball keeps rolling and magnifying. We got to go back to the absolute basics on all levels and learn to listen and provide that education that is warranted to give you the value proposition to the ownership, to the customer, to whoever. And we have to take our time and do it properly. There's no 10-minute solution. There's never been a 10-minute solution unless the guy is picking up the phone and saying, here's my Amex Black. I know I drove by your dealership. I saw the blue convertible sitting out front. Is it available? Yes, great. I'll take the card. But other than that, there is no 10-minute solution.
There is no, it's very funny. The only party involved in our business that can use Sinatra's song My Way is the customer. Right? Like we can't, how many people say, how many salespeople do you say, I slammed him, I did it, etc. In the end, the customer bought the car they wanted to buy. They bought the vehicle the way they wanted to buy it. Even if they were forced into it. There's only one way to force somebody into anything, and that's handcuff them and throw them in jail. Really. So they bought it their way. The one that called up at the Amex card and said, I'll take the convertible, they bought it their way. The one that came in and drove 72 vehicles and took it home and showed their puppy and everything else, bought it their way. We may think we did it, they did it.
Just a quick story to the puppy story there. When I worked for Ford UK, and they had a buyback program in the 90s that a customer can return a car within 30 days with unlimited mileage for whatever reason. And I had a guy bring a car home. Now in Britain, it's very famous that your dog is the ruler of the house. Guy took his car home, dog wouldn't get in the car. Brought the car back.
Yeah.
The dog wouldn't get in the car, so the guy brought the car back.
That's awesome.
Oh my
Hey, Peter, I want equal time because it is Hanukkah started last night. So I've got a quick joke. An 11-year-old Jewish kid comes home to his mother and he says, I got a part in the school play. She said, great. What part did you get? He says, I played the Jewish husband. She says, go back and ask for a speaking part.
Wow. Well, it says us the time, Jeff.
Ian, you don't have a clue.
It says us the time. Do we have any final thoughts this morning?
Yeah, I told my wife to embrace her mistakes. She gave me a hug.
That's good. It's like I said when you said that, Peter, when your wife told you something, the unconscious competence.
Yeah, conscious competence.
Yeah, it's funny. And then I don't know if you heard me when I said my wife taught me two things or one thing, and I said it's two. Yes, dear. John, you haven't got a word in edgewise.
I have to agree a lot with what Ian was saying about welcoming the customer. I remember the days when customers used to come in at lunchtime and look at cars and then come back and buy. You don't see that so much anymore. You don't see the Saturday morning where a guy's coming in with his children. He has a cup of coffee from Dunkin' Donuts or from Starbucks or whatever, and he's walking around the lot, for half an hour.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be accosted or ask what his credit score is. He's just there for pleasure.
And that's how many vehicles have we all sold on that person that really did not come in with any intention to buy a car. It was actually something to do.
Yeah. I think we have to be welcoming. We have to be thankful. We have to be appreciative, but more importantly, we got to be of service. I mean, I look back at gas stations in the 50s where they actually came out and actually serviced your car a little bit. Like maybe, I don't know, added some fluid. I mean, today it's like, what? You're throwing money through a plexiglass window at somebody. I mean, it's like, it's not the same experience. And I think
it's less than a week before Christmas. Jesus Christ would have been the greatest used car manager of all time. He invented servant management. He washed the feet of the disciples. Imagine if management nurtured salespeople, they go out and nurture the customers. Peter, I used to go in meetings. They used to beat us to death with a pipe, call us every foul name and say, okay, go sell some cars. Go sell some cars. We want to go out and be serial killers.
Yeah.
Which, of course, Peter led to careers in finance department. So that's
Hey, that's how I learned how to sell a car. I joined the dealership. They shook my hand. They gave me the list and they said, go sell cars. Took a few years, but it worked.
Any final thoughts for the holiday season from anybody, Jeff?
Gentlemen, I wish you the best. I wish you a great 2023. I thank you so much because everybody on this show has been an active supporter, and we appreciate it. We didn't, ask you to join us or anything, but we will call you on official guesting for the year. I do look forward to seeing you again, Larry, to meeting you, Tim. There we go. Wait a minute. Where's mine?
I don't have
There
one
we
here,
go.
but
And
I got lost
there.
If that's in the other room, I don't want to leave the room. I'll be left out to the table again.
Guys, it was a pleasure meeting you all, and certainly can't tell you what a pleasure it's been being involved with Ian and Jeff. Peter, I look forward to seeing you in the near future. I always see Don and Tim. I think you and I have a little meeting scheduled in Dallas anyway at the NADA, which I'm very much.
I hope to get to see most of you in Dallas at the end of January. You bet.
Healthy holidays to everybody.
Sounds good.
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Gentlemen, thank
Hey,
you.
well, Happy New Year, and we'll see you next year. Oh, I've been waiting to say that.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
And I also was very moved when I saw you at the end of the hall. Las Vegas.
Awesome.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
See
you.
you guys.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thanks for joining us. It was a great show, and follow us anywhere you would like on your favorite podcast, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course on our YouTube, or subscribe to our own channel.